Ram Thorburn back with another music video reaction, and today we got one of my all-time favorite artists in Struggle Jennings, and it's another one that he's done with his daughter Brianna Harness. I've absolutely loved everything that these two have done together. Sunny Days was an absolute masterpiece, and really I've just liked everything that I've heard from them. And Brianna Harness is a hell of a talented artist in her own right. She's got a hell of a voice, a hell of a presence, and I don't know if she writes the lyrics, but if she does, then she does a damn good job with that too. This does look like it's going to be another topical song, so looking forward to doing a reaction to this one. And let's go ahead and get into it. But first,
Every time who I am, well, I came, I'm a man, 6 shooters in both my hands. I'm a cold-blooded brother, a real bad mother. Watch out, honey, here I am.
without any further ado, Struggle Jennings and Brianna Harness, Cry for Help. It's got the missing children. Yep. Similar to his last video.
Save me, I can't save myself.
Very haunting.
Save me, this is my cry for
Cornfields make it even more haunting.
Save me, I can't save myself. Save me.
Child lives matter.
I'm a patriot and I'm a patriarch, but I'm a father first and I'ma play that part. Gonna stand for mine and never bow or buckle. There for anybody that ever get in trouble. Yeah, strong.
All right, starting right off, talking about I'm a patriot and I'm a patriarch, but I'm a father first. Like, you know, and this is the energy that is missing from our culture, that masculine male energy that is directed in very productive and positive ways. You know, we have our culture today. They like to talk about toxic masculinity. They want all men to be castrated and wearing dresses. What was that? Just the other day, Harry Styles. What group was Harry Styles in? I don't know. He's some boy band. I don't know. I don't really keep up with all that stuff. But I saw that he came out wearing a dress, and it was so... Everybody was so proud of him. It was so brave. No, it wasn't. It was disgusting. You know, the reason... You know, the reason... like men wear dresses, like you look back in history at our culture and why men would wear a dress, like in movies like Some Like It Hot. It's because it's funny, because men are not supposed to wear dresses. But we have somebody like Struggle Jennings who now comes out and, you know, he's got that aggressive masculine energy, but he's channeling it in a positive direction, talking about being a father, being a patriot, being a patriarch. But of course, people on the left would hear that and they would think that, oh, if he's a patriarch, that means he's oppressive. No. Not one bit. It means that he's playing his role. You know, men and women are not supposed to be same. When people talk about equality of the sexes, they get everything entirely wrong. Men and women are not supposed to be equal because we are not equal. We are complementary. Men have certain strengths that they play to that women do not have. Same as women have certain strengths that men don't have. That's why we're complementary. We fit together. It's the yin and the yang. But we have our culture today that doesn't appreciate that. They want to feminize all of masculinity, call it toxic, and feminize the men, because they know that when it comes to who they can control, it's going to be the men that are going to be the ones that are actually going to fight back. And if you castrate the men, if you make them weak, then they're not going to fight back. If you make them docile, if you make them more feminine, all of a sudden you can rule over everybody because you're going to have nobody to put you in check. Because in the duality of man and women, that is the man's job. That is what the man does. You know, there was a show, I forget what the show was, and I don't think I ever actually saw it. I remember hearing about it, where they took a group of men and a group of women and they put them on an island and they separated them and said, you know, we'll see after, I think it was like a month or two, who has survived better than the other. And after a couple months, the men were like, they had huts built, they had a system in place, they were working everything, and the women were over on the other side of the island bickering with each other, freaking out about where we're going to get food and all this and that. That's because without men society crumbles. And without women, men are just running around beating each other over the clubs over the head with clubs, speaking in grunts. You know, men go out and they clear the wild, they clear the brush, and they build the structures, and then women come in and they civilize it. But there needs to be that balance. And if you go too far and you over civilize and you over soften the men, all of a sudden you have nobody to protect you from the outside threats, because that is the man's job. That is masculinity, and there's nothing toxic about it. Love seeing Struggle coming out, bringing that energy right off the bat.
That for anybody that ever get in trouble, yeah, storm is brewing, I can see them clouds, hear the children crying, baby, clear it loud, shine a light on shadows, I'ma clear them out, don't wanna hear the truth, you better hear them now, for it hit.
Yeah, you don't want to hear the truth, you gotta hear it now. And that's, you know, that is very true, because one thing that the internet has brought is an information age, the likes of which we've never seen. And before, we always had the narrative dictated to us by, you know, whatever corporate news organizations were brought to us. And while that did give a sort of it gave a cultural cohesion that we are lacking today, and had its positive effects, we were also had the wool pulled over our eyes, and we're not able to really see evil for what it was. But now that we have the internet, now that we have the information age, this information flows freely, and we're able to actually see what is going on in the world and know where we got things wrong, where we were just lulled to sleep. And at this point, if you're not paying attention, you're willfully ignorant.
The truth, you better hear them now, for it hits home, and it's too close to the night of facts that you've been running from. I made it through hell just to show and tell all the lost ones where I've been coming from. My number one is my household, and my family always been my saving grace.
Yeah, and that's again, he's talking about the family again. And, you know, that's another thing that the left loves to go after, is the family. They love the idea that it takes a village. You know, they don't like the nuclear family, because in a society, the smallest form of government is the family. You know, the family operates like a socialist structure. You have the father that goes out, creates the living, and he buys the stuff for the woman and the children and all that. It is in a microcosm, a socialist type organization. But they want to be able to extrapolate that upon the masses, but you cannot do that if you have a strong and healthy society of nuclear family units. That's why when it came to the black family, we saw before the Great Society, when they started giving welfare checks, when they started financially incentivizing black women to kick the fathers out of the homes, the black family, I think it was only about 20% of children were born out of wedlock, and about 25% of white children were born out of wedlock. The black culture actually had a tighter constructed family knit than the white people had. And that was a problem, because even under Jim Crow segregation, you know, it was the whole separate but equal clause. And because the whole equal thing existed, they had the same set of parameters of economic freedom and prosperity. It was just segregated into their own communities. They were actually starting to thrive and prosper on their own, showing that all it takes is the right values and the right setting, and anybody, no matter your skin color, can thrive. And that was a huge issue for those who wanted to keep pushing forward the racist narrative. And so what they did was they integrated everybody, but then they sabotaged the culture of the black community by financially incentivizing women to kick men out of the house. Next thing you know, here we are today, 75% of black kids are born out of wedlock, and they have lives of criminality that are far disproportionate to other cultures in American society. And a lot of that comes down to not only the kicking, the disillusion of the family unit in the black culture, but then also replacing that father figure with negative influences with things like NWA and gangster rap. It was the perfect storm. You take the father out of the home, and then you replace the father with very bad influences, and all of a sudden you've set an entire racial culture up to fail in perpetuity. But that, you know, and I know I went off on a tangent there when it comes to race and everything like that, but it goes to show how important the nuclear family unit is to raising a sturdy society and well-adjusted individuals into that society. So another good thing seeing Struggle pushing those family values, and that is something that is lost, Because again, the people who want the power, they are intimidated by the nuclear family unit, because if you have a society of nuclear family units, you have a society that doesn't need a larger government, because you have a bunch of tiny little independent governments within each household that are able to run autonomously.
Household and my family always been my saving grace. There's a war right now and it's taking place, and you bite your tongue so you saving face. I'ma yell it loud, this my battle cry on this battlefield. I'll take my consequence. Yeah, it's common sense. When it's good and evil, you can't ride the fence. That's some coward shit.
I love that line right there. He talks about, I'll take my consequence. When it's good and evil, you can't ride the fence. That's cowardice. That is absolute cowardice. It really is. And it's, cowardice, I think, is probably the biggest. It's probably one of the biggest sins. They have the 7 deadly sins, and cowardice is not one of them. But I think cowardice probably should be one of them. There should be an 8th deadly sin, and that is cowardice. And let me go back and listen to what he just said again there, because I kind of got lost in my thoughts here.
This battlefield will take my consequence. Yeah, it's common sense. When it's good and evil, you can't ride the fence. That's some coward shit.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can't be afraid of doing of the consequences of doing the right thing. When you're doing the right thing, doing the right thing always does come with consequences, because you're always going to be at odds with people who want to do the wrong thing in order to usurp power and financial gain. You're always going to be at odds with them, because you are going to A, shine a light on them, and B, make them look bad in doing so. And so there's a certain threat to those who are willing to do the right thing and fall on the grenade, to be willing to sacrifice in order to do the right thing. And, one thing that we always forget, we like to hold the founding fathers in such high esteem and such reverence, but we tend to forget what their lives were like after they signed the Declaration of Independence. Many of them were killed. Most of them were hunted down by the British. Most of them died in absolute squalor because they gave up everything in their lives to set forth in building a nation that we can now sit here and thrive and take for granted. That took consequence. That took accepting the consequence. That took not caring about the consequence. And I even have to come to terms with that myself, because I worked in film and I work in academia, and I wish I had started this channel years ago. But because I worked in film, I didn't want to be so overt and blow my chances in Hollywood and that kind of thing, and I was being a goddamn coward. And it wasn't until this year when I started really seeing everything for what it was and understanding the dire consequences of not stepping up, of not being willing to sacrifice my own career, my own job, my own perspectives, what that means to not do that anymore. And so I started the channel this year, and I've rediscovered a new sense of purpose. I no longer even care how I do in Hollywood, because I feel like I'm doing the right thing now. And you're going to find that when you do the right thing, you become okay with the consequences. It's through your cowardice that the consequences actually matter. Because if somebody's going to make you pay for doing the right thing, you don't want to be in league with those people anyways. Like, for instance, with me working in film, it's supposed to be a profession where you're able to express yourself and tell stories that suit your own experience and suit your own worldview. But me being a conservative, I would be blacklisted here in Hollywood. Why would I ever want to work in an industry that is about self-expression where I have to zip my mouth shut because it goes against a prescribed narrative? Absolutely not. If that's the way the industry is going to work, I don't want any part of it. I still want to make movies. So if somebody out there wants to give me money for one of my movies, hell yeah, let's make this. And let's hopefully maybe make an offshoot of Hollywood that is more inclusive to other people who aren't just part of this leftist ideological tent that you have to be under if you want to have any sort of success. So, but the point that I'm trying to make is that it wasn't until I finally said fuck it. It wasn't until I finally said fuck it. I don't care about the consequences. I have to speak out. I have to do the right thing. That I realized that doing the right thing is far more rewarding than doing the wrong thing for material gain.
You can't ride the fence, that's some coward shit. I'll take them hits and I'll throw them blows. I'll lose it all to save their innocence.
It's exactly. He'll lose it all. He'll lose it all to save their innocence. Now, and this in this instance, he's talking about the children, which of course it's great that he's shining a light on the issue with the missing children. But yeah, the good thing about what he's doing here is we've had several of these Save the Children songs come out, and a lot of them are very on the nose. What Struggle is doing in this song is that he's framing his arguments in a way that can be extrapolated out upon the culture at large, that are much more applicable globally than just in this local argument about saving the children, which of course is a huge deal. But it's also one of many issues that we as a culture have to fight for and fight against. So really liking what's going on with this.
Lose it all to say they're innocent. I'll deliver this with some diligence, 'cause your ignorance makes us different.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Your ignorance is what makes us different. And, I've got a buddy, one of my best friends. He is also a conservative, but he is, he's a very old school conservative. Like, it's almost like he's stuck in the political landscape of a decade ago, and he hasn't understood the shifting. And when I try to talk to him about it, he doesn't want to have the conversation. He doesn't want to have the conversation about how things have changed, how we've learned more about what the agenda of the global elites are, and all of that stuff. It's too conspiratorial for him. And what the real issue is I think that it takes him out of his comfort zone. He's scared of it, and there's that certain willful ignorance there that, it's like he gets so close to things sometimes, but he can't put his toe over that line because he knows that once he does, there's no coming back. Once you see certain things, you can't unsee them. And even for people that you would think would be open to learning about a lot of the agenda of what's going on with the liberal elites, with the leftist elites, and what their agenda is for this country and for the world, it's very scary. It's very scary. And so I can see how, it's easy to get trapped in this time when it was just a standard battle of liberals versus conservatives. But now the way that things have shifted, liberals are now under the same tent as conservatives, and we're fighting against a global communist agenda. And it's a completely different political landscape. And if you can't keep up with the times, if you can't figure out what is actually going on and change when your information changes, and you're too afraid to take in that information because you're too afraid of how it's going to change your worldview and change your perspective, man, that's willful ignorance. That's willful negligence. And it has caused a little bit of a, we can't talk about certain things like we used to because he won't hear it. He doesn't even want to have that conversation. I'm okay if he wants to have that conversation and then push back against it. But if they don't even want to have the conversation, that's a tough pill to swallow. To see a friend that you thought was always on that same wavelength as you, that is just afraid to cross that threshold. Gotta wonder if that missing shoe is a Tom Hanks reference right there. For anybody who doesn't know, and now look, I'm not casting any kind of allegations because this is some of the fringier stuff that goes on in some of the internet discussions about what celebrities are involved in the human trafficking and the pedophilia and all of that. And Tom Hanks has had a lot of light shined on him or shown on him. I don't know how. Whatever the right way to conjugate that word is, Tom Hanks has fallen under a lot of scrutiny, and one of the reasons is if you go to his Instagram, you'll see that he posts all of these pictures of just like a missing glove or a missing shoe with some like creepy kind of caption underneath it. And it was funny. I was telling this friend of mine about it, and she was very open and listening to all this kind of stuff. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, Tom Hanks is this, Tom Hanks is that, because honestly, I don't know. And I'm only willing to put so much faith in what I see on unproven claims from the internet. I mean, you can connect a lot of dots and say, yeah, that's pretty creepy, but I'm not willing to jump to conclusions about it. That's kind of where I stand. But I was telling her about it, and when I mentioned Tom Hanks, she was like, no way, not Tom Hanks. He's the good guy. And I was just like, go look at his Instagram. And again, I just think his Instagram is creepy. I don't think it necessarily is like, it's not like proof of anything, But she started scrolling through his Instagram, and I have never seen a girl more freaked out than her looking at Tom Hanks's Instagram and seeing just all the like lone shoes and gloves and stuff like that he takes pictures of. And they're always like children's gloves and children's shoes and things like that. It is creepy. It is weird and creepy. It's a weird fixation to have. And it's not one that makes a whole lot of sense. But anyways, I'm just wondering, Struggle, if you see this, answer in the comment section. Is this a little wink and a nod to Tom Hanks right there? Because that'd be funny. These kids are pretty good actors. And that's exactly it. Once you take the blindfold off, you see the horror story. And a lot of people, man, they really are afraid to see that horror story because their whole worldview can come crashing down. And it can be so disorienting, they don't exactly know their place in the world anymore. It's very, I mean, I understand it, but still, don't be a coward. Don't be a coward. Ooh, I love that line right there. Angels fly with their guns out. You know, there's Christians have gotten very passive as, you know, as society progresses through modernity. Christianity has become very passive, and I think it's to a level of our detriment, it's to our detriment to a degree. You know, we always want to have grace and mercy because that is also paramount to the Christian teachings. But we have this idea of the angels being these sitting on a cloud playing the harp and everything's peace and love and harmony. But that is not true. The angels were warriors in the battle of good versus evil. They were no strangers to the violence of the fight against evil. And that's why, every kid that goes to church and they hear the 10 Commandments and they get to thou shalt not kill, and they ask the question, well, what about war? What if I'm a soldier in the army? Am I still going to go to hell? And the answer has always been no. And the reason for that is because if you are fighting on the side of a Christian culture, you are supposed to be fighting on the side of good. Now, of course, we all know that that is not necessarily true in terms of who's up at top, staging the wars and whose interests you're really fighting for. But in a simpler context, in a simpler times, when you are fighting for good and you are slaying evil, that represents the battle that the angels fight with the demons all the time. The angels are not peaceful creatures of mythology. They are warriors. They are God's warriors. And so I love that line, the angels flying with their guns out, because that's it. The angels they're warriors. I already said it. I don't know how to say it another way. Yeah, they try to silence you when you bring the truth. And never have we seen that to be more true than in 2020. The amount that is called conspiracy theories. I mean, just look at the election right now. We're sitting here, we've got the Trump team out there showing all kinds of evidence of voter fraud, massive voter fraud, corruption, malfeasance. And what does the media do? Baseless claims. It's all part of a conspiracy theory. It's all tied back to that 17th letter of the alphabet that we can't say on YouTube anymore lest we get demonetized or banned. You know which one I'm talking about. I think that was backwards for you guys. Yeah, that one. You mentioned that. You mentioned that all of a sudden. It's all conspiracy theories, and they use it as a catch-all. Anything that goes against the narrative now is a conspiracy theory, despite the fact that the mainstream narrative pushed this Russiagate conspiracy theory that we have now found out was a hoax cooked up by the Hillary Clinton campaign and then run through our three-letter agencies in the government who are all corrupt. We have all the proof. We can bring the receipts. And yet still, to this day, when you ask the people who push the narrative, the Russian collusion was real and Obamagate is a hoax. It's a conspiracy theory. Up is down, left is right. It's all, I mean, there's no sense in it anymore. And that's what I was talking about earlier with the internet. We're able to see things now, and they're losing their grip on the narrative. But they are getting more and more desperate and more vicious to anybody who speaks out against the narrative and gives contrary ideas and opinions, or even facts. You know, you present facts and they won't even listen to them. You show them evidence, they close their eyes. It's, you know, we're getting to a point where there is no reconciling the two sides in our culture anymore, because one is driven by a narrative that is driven by sheer force of will, and the other is looking for truth. There is no reconciliation between sheer force of will and the search for truth. They cannot coexist. And so, you know, those angels with their guns might become much more literal in the coming days, in the coming months.
Now they try to box us in, but we can box them out. Don't dare ask me what I'm talking about. If you ain't listened yet, then you'll never hear it. We gon' pray to God and we gon' stand up. Got an army here, I know the devil fear. Yeah, the future's clear when you know the
He says got an army here and the devil fear it. Well, yeah. If the devil is the deep state and the devil is the globalist, Marxist informed New World Order control that they're trying to put over us, then yeah, they fear it. You can see the fear in how they are tightening the narrative. Why do they have to ban everybody? They're afraid of the truth because they cannot argue on the merits. They can't because they're liars. They're fraudsters. And they're crooks.
Just clear when you know the past, and that train is coming and it's rolling fast. Gotta fix the path that's on the broken track. There's no time for us to be holding back. Now we need some leaders to wake up the sleepers, make believers out of non-believers.
Yeah, we need some leaders to wake up the sleepers, turn the non-believers into believers. Yes, that's exactly what we need. And a lack of leadership is one of the primary reasons why this culture has been able to fall apart. There just hasn't been a solid leadership to call it out until Donald Trump. And now we have people like Struggle Jennings. Struggle Jennings is stepping up and being a leader in the culture right now, putting out, what was historically just entertainment and music, being a leader to open up people's eyes. And he's taken that mantle on himself, whatever the cost to his music career, to talk about this kind of stuff. He's fallen on that grenade. He's doing it willfully, and he's telling us, join him. Well, Struggle, I'm right here with you, buddy. I'm right here with you.
The sleepers, make believers out of non-believers. Let freedom of speech ring through the speakers. Take the filthy rich to the cleaners.
Take the filthy rich to the cleaners. That's a really interesting line, because that's one that also represents the paradigm shift in our politics, where, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this, because for the longest time it was always the right that defended the wealthy, and we still do, under the pretense that they earned their money honestly. And that's what's so interesting, though, is that we're finding out that so much of the billionaires that we used to on principle, because we don't believe in the usurpation of people's wealth and prosperity. We still don't believe in the usurpation and stealing people's wealth and limiting their prosperity, but we're finding out more and more about what these people are engaged in, the corruption that they're engaged in, and that we will not stand for. So it's not, and also it's not just about the money, because our argument before is just about the money, but we're finding out that the money goes hand in hand with the power, and what they do with the power is what we're now railing against. It's not the fact that they're filthy rich. I have no problem with somebody being filthy rich if they earn their money honestly and they're doing honest things that are in the spirit of America. I'm all for that. That's why I have no problem that Donald Trump is a billionaire. Good for him. But you know what he's doing? He's taking his money and he's fighting for us. So it's not necessarily about the filthy rich. It's about the elitist cabal, the elitism of the filthy rich, and how they come together and work in tangent to close the door behind them, so that we, the people, it becomes harder and harder for us to rise up to their level of prosperity. That's what we don't like. And I mean, also, of course, the things that they're doing, with the children, that's what the song is about. I know I haven't really covered that very much. I feel like that's been covered ad nauseum. The idea with the children, of course, and, we have Donald Trump that is out there fighting for that. But going back to what I was saying about the whole paradigm shift in politics is that I'm old enough to remember, 2 years ago when the left was touting Bernie Sanders, who railed against the millionaires and the billionaires. And all of a sudden, Bernie Sanders becomes a millionaire, and all of a sudden, it's just the billionaires. No, we're not worried about the millionaires anymore. We're just worried about the billionaires. And you had all the Occupy Wall Street people that were railing against all of this stuff, that the free trade agreements that make us poor. That they actually got some things right. They got a lot of things wrong too, because a lot of them ended up going into this like neo-Marxist type reaction to or response to how you deal with it, which is not good. But now you had all these Bernie people that were railing against the rich, and now that Bernie sold out to the establishment, they listen to the corporate billionaire media class hook, line, and sinker. It's absolutely insane. At least we can sit here and justify why our views on the wealthy have changed, and how it's not really about them being wealthy. It's about the corruption that takes place and the cronyism. And, one thing that's interesting when it comes to the cronyism is, I'm gonna pat my back on this one, because there's one thing that I got right a long time ago. And this was back in probably about 2011, 2012. I was more of a libertarian than a conservative. And I always said, the left, the right blames everything on the government. The left blames everything on business. And I always said, it's really not either. It's the marriage of the two. It's the combination when they get in bed together, the cronyism. And that's where we're starting to see what is becoming a fascistic economic model. It is economic fascism. When you have the corporate class that is now working in tandem to fulfill the narrative of the ruling class. That's when you get very dangerous. Now, back then, I didn't really have the foresight to see just how far it would go. But we're now at a point where all of these corporations, they're just hook, line, and sinker for the Democrat globalist agenda. And it's really, really dangerous. But I saw that coming a long time ago. I just never really realized that it would look like what it does today.
Take the filthy rich to the cleaners. Shine our light, baby, high beamers. Don't let sex crimes be a misdemeanor. Protect these babies from these sickening creatures. I refuse to sit and watch from the bleachers.
Because he's not a coward. God, Brianna's voice is so hauntingly beautiful. The meat curtains just add to the cold, chilling feeling of this video here. Man, that was awesome. That was awesome. And Struggle, I love seeing him get involved. You know, like, he's always made great music, and the stuff that he did with Jelly Roll, the Waylon and Willie albums, those are where I just went all in on those two artists. And I think, you know, they're great separate, but they're even better together. You know, they're peanut butter and jelly. But you know, that's when he really started talking about certain themes, about like redemption and, you know, making good with the past and the bad things that you've done. And I kind of started him on this pathway of being more topical, and it's really, really awesome to see. that he's really stepping up and being a cultural leader in a lot of issues that are really important. And what I also like about it is that he doesn't do it in this sappy, saccharine kind of way. You know, I've seen a few things of these like Save the Children type music videos, and it's just like, you know, like I appreciate that you're speaking out about an issue that is very important and very real, but man, like, it's so saccharine. It almost feels like there's something self-serving about it. Nothing felt self-serving about what Struggle was doing here. You know, he didn't feel like he was trying to be part of a movement with this. It feels like he genuinely cares. It also feels like he's genuinely willing to crack heads to solve the problem, which is what we really need in our cultural leaders, is we need people that are not just going to talk about it, but are actually going to inspire a certain energy to fight. And Struggle brings that in spades. Struggle brings that warrior to the table. And that's what we need. That is what we need. So, and of course, you know, the video was really good. You know, the color tones, of course, brought out the coldness of the topic of the topic at hand with the missing children. The wall of missing. He did a good job of letting the video speak for itself while touching on the issues in the song, but not overdoing it. You know, keeping that warrior mentality, not being too on the nose. That's an issue that we have a lot of times when people try to put forth a message, is they're too on the nose with the message. I thought he did a good job of working in the subtext with this. You know, having Brianna sitting in that kind of warehouse on that ratty twin bed mattress, and having the violinist sitting there behind meat curtains. It kind of made you feel like you were in you know, like a walk-in freezer. Just added to the coldness of the situation they were talking about, and he really let the visuals do a lot of the talking, which I think was a very good move on the whole for this entire project. Anyways, great job by Struggle, man. I hope Struggle sees some of these. You know, I'd love to talk. I've been a fan of Struggle for a long time. I'm not somebody. I didn't just discover Struggle. I've been listening to Struggle since probably 2012, 2013. He was locked up when I found him, and it was his earlier stuff. When he was signed with Yellow Wolf. And that's when I first started listening to him, and I really liked him off the bat. But over the years, seeing how he's developed as an artist, he's had a very, very strong development going from where he started, which was a lot of promise, but still putting the package together, still finding his identity as an artist, to what he was when he came out of prison, which was a whole new man. And really, it was a man. You know, it was almost like him going from kind of a boy running around doing the thug life, to learning from his mistakes and actually wanting to give a message of growth and development to his audience. And it's really developed in his artistic integrity. And man, I can't say enough. I could go on and on about, you know, how much I appreciate what Struggle Jennings is doing. So Struggle, if you see this, man, good job, man. Anyways, guys, that's about all I have for this one. And as always, rev your engines, ride hard, and fight like hell.